Hi there, I have been playing Genshin for 4 years at this point, and let me tell you, watching the characters in this game slowly evolve has either been like watching a mutilating train crash happen in slow motion, or watching a beautiful lotus flower bloom. That is to say, character development in this game is either horribly skewed and power creep creeps up to them faster than I would like, or they are ridiculously overpowered and somehow manage to stand the test of time. There are a lot of examples of characters that meet this trend, but today I want to specifically talk about the nations in Genshin, because if you have, or likely haven't noticed, every nation in Genshin has some sort of polarizing trend. The reason for this is pretty obvious. It diversifies the gameplay. It helps players not get too used to the same thing too frequently, and in turn, it makes the gameplay feel refreshing. A great example of this is Mondstadt, which had a very heavy emphasis on crowd control, or CC, with the Animo Traveler getting a burst that would suck up enemies, shred Animo res, and then swirl whatever element you had on the team. Characters like Sucrose, Kazuha, and of course Suck Daddy Venti pretty much trivialized any content that had minor trash mobs in it. Liwa's gimmick was Unity for the longest time. Some of the strongest early game teams always included some character from Liwa, and they gained benefits from working with other characters. The Lithic series of weapons is a very unfortunate example of this, but I more so mean kits. Zhangling, Chongyun, Jingshou, Zhao, Ganyu, Hu Tao are all some of the most overpowered characters in the game, and they originally came from Liwa. While these are very loose examples, the game really found its identity around the spark of Inazuma. Inazuma was the first region to have a really hardcore identity to it. That being the region of lightning, everything in Inazuma revolved around one of three things: high speed, energy recharge effects, or electricity. Before this, the meta was dealing as much damage with a single blow as you possibly could, or with a short series of blows. A great example is Zhao's plunging attacks, Ganyu's bow and arrow, Eula's massive Claymore drop attack, Hu Tao's really powerful charge attacks that you only got a few of, and of course, some others that I cannot remember off the top of my head, but please remind me if I missed one. Inazuma, on the other hand, followed the principle of death by 1,000 cuts. A lot of characters that came out in Inazuma had really powerful, really flashy attacks that dealt a lot of small instances of damage. Think of things like Ayaka's burst, Yoimiya's auto attacks, Ayato's skill, and of course Ito's charge attack spam. If it was not one of these criteria they met, then it was usually one of the others, that being energy recharge or electricity. Characters like Kujosara, Yae Miko, and Raiden Shogun heavily revolved around this niche. Characters that fall outside of this typically had something to do with future releases, or some sort of bar to be set later on. These characters are obviously Kuki Shinobu and Kokomi. On release, these characters were pretty mid, but they were a holdover for the next region, being Sumeru, which in and of itself had its own gimmick. Some might say I'm cheating on this, but when Sumeru released, the gimmick itself was Dendro. It was the first time where Genshin ever released a system that completely overhauled the game you were playing. And with Dendro being as meta and game-changing as it was, it became a race to the top for a lot of people trying to collect as many Dendro characters as they could. People that already had max level accounts were building mid-units like Kolai and Dendro Traveler, which really were only existent at the time to fill the Dendro niche. And this was because Dendro reactions were just really overpowered. Hyperbloom, Aggravate, Spread, and of course Quick Bloom were some of the most powerful teams in the game. Burgeon even had its place, making characters like Toma good again. And you can really see the devs leaning towards this system as more and more characters are released that filled this role. Nahida, Cyno, Nilou, and of course everybody's favorite child, Alhaitham, were all prime examples of really powerful characters that met the criteria of supporting the new reaction. Of course, there were a few characters that did not meet this criteria, such as the Wanderer, which was a Animo DPS, but you get what I mean. Overall, the entire region was based around this gimmick. So I guess for some reason, MiHoYo decided that they needed to continue this trend and release a new gimmick for their next region: Fontaine. Fontaine had a grand total of 2 gimmicks, one being the healing effect that most Fontainian characters wanted. Fontaine characters had some sort of benefit be enacted from their kit by gaining or losing health. Wriothesley, Lenny, Farina, Neuvillette, just a few examples of characters that gained some sort of benefit from gaining or losing HP. This mostly had to do with the artifact set, the Hunter set, which upon gaining or losing health would give the team a 36% crit rate bonus to the main DPS, which was very very powerful. It brought back a lot of characters like Zhao, who previously was getting shafted. And much like Nahida with Bloom, Farina came out and made it to where characters even from outside of the region could benefit from this. With Farina's passive HP drain on her skill and then HP restore on her secondary skill, she was able to balance the team between life and death, and in so, she could benefit them with her burst, which required you to rapidly gain and lose HP in exchange for powerful world-ending buffs, while also activating the Hunter set for the rest of the team. And I guess one gimmick wasn't enough, because Fontaine decided they needed another one in the form of the Bond of Life mechanic, which I don't really want to touch upon because I don't really see this as a national gimmick. As far as I'm aware, only 2 characters even gain benefit from this gimmick, and that is Clorinde and Arlenchino. Clorinde is one of the few units who I don't own, so I'm not really going to talk about her. But Arlenchino, on the other hand, yeah, it's a main part of her kit. But she's the only real character I know of that gets benefit from this. I know the weapons from Fontaine also have something to do with the Bond of Life mechanic, but it's nowhere near as major as something like Dendro for Sumeru, big one-shots for Liwa and Mondstadt, or energy recharge for Inazuma. It feels more like a character niche. But once again, if you disagree, by all means, join the Discord and call me an idiot. One way or another, the point I'm trying to make is, as characters came out for Fontaine, a new gimmick was revealed that a lot of characters didn't get benefit from, and it raised the ceiling a lot if you were a Fontainian character, because, as we all know, Fontaine characters get the most benefit from this new gimmick, and this new gimmick in turn made them more powerful than other units because they can make use of newer, more powerful sets. And now, we are starting to see the same thing occur in Natlan. A YouTuber named Vars recently made a video talking about the Natlan mechanics and how it might cause trouble. Now, I am not going to quote everything that this man said. If you want to watch it for yourself, you can check that out on his channel. But, essentially, his main point was that a lot of characters in Natlan have mechanics that require them to be with Natlan characters, which means they are, as a result, a lot more strict and strenuous and cannot be used on other teams, which in turn makes them more powerful. Which is what I said about a year ago when I made my video on Fontainian characters. It's only now that a lot of other people are beginning to see the same effect. Now personally, I'm unsure whether or not this is a good or a bad thing. I love every region having a gimmick, and Natlan characters being like how Geo used to be, where it wants to work with other characters of its same archetype, is an interesting concept, but it raises the power ceiling specifically for these characters to that which other characters will not have the ability to reach. Here is a great example. The new Natlan artifact set gives you 40% damage bonus if a Natlan character is the one that triggers the reaction. That is over 3 times what a non-Natlan character will receive if they trigger the exact same reaction with the exact same artifact set, locking players into needing to pull these specific characters. This also causes problems for the characters of the nation. A great example is Kanich. I have made it no secret that I love Kanich. He is one of my favorite characters in the game, so I'm going to root for my boy here. Kanich is currently getting screwed. Kanich, in the current game state, does not function due to the limitations placed on his kit, or at least he doesn't fully function. This is because Kanich wants 2 things to make his kit work. He needs to A, have 2 Natlan characters on the team, including himself, which, unless you're running support Milani, that is not an optimal strategy whatsoever, and B, he wants some character on the team to be able to trigger pyro reactions. And because of his specific role consolidation, you need a Bennett, you need some sort of healer, and you need some sort of buffer. So unless there is a off-field pyro-damaging Natlan character that can trigger the new artifact set, he will not be able to make full use of his kit. And I am fully aware that we are going to get a character like that in the form of the Pyro Archon, but as it currently stands, Kanich is borderline unusable. At least optimally. You can still use him, he's still very strong, and he will destroy all the content, but the point is he cannot be played to his max potential because the game simply does not allow it yet. And while Kanich is of course the most egregious example of this, Milani is suffering from the same fate currently. However, Milani will get access to Zilla in the next patch, and she has access to Kachina now, so maybe it's not that big of a deal for her. Now I do wonder if the Pyro Archon will come out and follow the same role as, of course, Farina, who had this national gimmick that a lot of characters from Fontaine could use, but Farina made it accessible to the entirety of the character roster. The Archons do have a history of being these founding characters of a specific archetype, so that may very likely occur. And in that case, I will gladly eat my own words, but as it currently stands, the national gimmicks in Genshin seem to be more of a hindrance rather than a help. You can't really play with your characters in their complete state until after the region has already concluded, and that kinda sucks. But then again, I am incredibly biased because I love Kinich. But by all means, I would love to know what you think about the situation. If you like the video, like. If you dislike it, dislike it. And if you really like me, go and subscribe, support the new channel. That all being said, see ya.